Welcome to the final episode of Frankly Speaking with me, Onkgopotse JJ Tabane. We're coming to you live from the SABC here in Auckland Park tonight. What a journey it has been. Thank you for your overwhelming feedback on the show, and where you've also indicated that the program was too short to do justice to the national dialogue it was meant to pursue. As we come to the end of this season, I would like to thank all of you and all of the guests who have been here, including leaders of political parties who gave off of their time to share their perspectives here on Frankly Speaking. Business leaders, youth leaders, leaders of women organizations, and many other guests who came here to speak frankly about the state of our nation. It has been a privilege to dialogue with you. Let's take a look at the highlights of our inaugural episode that took off with the blessings of Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng. Thank you so much, Chief Justice, for agreeing to be my first guest on this brand new show, Frankly Speaking. What do you think, if you were to pick one thing that is linked to the Constitution, linked to the judiciary, that you would say this is Mandela's legacy that we need to be dealing with, we need to be working around to achieve?
Remember, Nelson Mandela was a lawyer of note for that matter. One of the things that he did, which is the heritage we must hold on to, was to ensure that the Constitutional Court of South Africa was established. And opening that court, he said, make sure that you do not reduce yourselves to the level of a rubber stamp of whatever the executive and the legislature is doing. That legacy lives on.
What a guy. If all of our leaders could emulate a fellow like the Chief Justice, I think we'll take our country somewhere. But to end the season tonight, we talk about the role of mining in our economy and the state of that industry with the Minister of Mineral Resources, Gwede Mantashe. The economic indicators, whether be it our debt to GDP ratio, whether be it our recession that we've just entered, or increasing fuel prices, truly things that are worrisome in our economy, including the rising unemployment rate that have seen about 65% or 55% of our population living in abject poverty. The mining industry is a huge contributor to the GDP, is also shedding jobs at an alarming rate, prompting the ministry to call on them to review the situation for the better. To help me understand what is to be done, my final guest here on Frankly Speaking is Mr. Gwede Mantashe, Chairperson of the ANC and the Minister of Mineral Resources. Let's go talk frankly to him. Yeah, no, it's fine. The economic indicators, we meet at a time when the economic indicators really are worrisome. I mean, if you look at just the fact that we've entered a technical recession, lots of unemployment, rate and indicators, retrenchments in various sectors. When you look at these indicators, what does it say to you about how government and business have tried to work together over the last 24 years to bring the economy to a reasonable situation that can take us out of this misery?
One of the basic lessons when you're a miner is that you must never panic, because panic kills. When you panic, you're going to stumble from one mistake to the next, from the next to the other. So I don't think the fact that we're in a technical recession must lead to us panicking. We must put our heads together to improve the situation. Let me give you the first indicator. I looked at agriculture, which was the biggest contributor to our decline, 29% thereof. And I said, what has gone wrong with agriculture? And I was convinced by an analyst called Siklobo, who says, no, agriculture is now paying the price for the drought in the Western Cape and the late rains in the rest of the country. That translated to late harvest So the impact of harvest, which should be in the last quarter, is going to be reflected in this quarter. That is agriculture. And I'm very optimistic in that regard. So indicators indicate to us that we need to put our heads together. I'm very much full of confidence of the package that the president is working on to stimulate the economy.
But what should we have done differently from a policy perspective as government in order to, in a sense, to obviate the need now to be coming with stimulus packages to try to recover from something that looks quite dire? I mean, if you look at the fact that you've got 55% of people living in dire poverty, that's not what the RDP would have anticipated 24 years ago.
It cannot. One of the things that we should have done differently was to create a passive society where we commit government to do everything and anything for the citizen. We should have come with a formula where government worked with the citizens in building the country. Today, many people, you see now, I look in the number of social media groups, when they debate about this thing, they have one suggestion: increase social grants. And every time I have an opportunity, I say to them, don't increase the social grant, increase productivity of the economy.
So that you have less people being dependent.
Yes.
Otherwise, we have more people depending
let's
on the state.
Let's invest on creating a more productive society. If we do that, we'll get out of this a better society.
Part of creating that productive society would have been to build a better relationship with business. And I'm sure you'll agree with that relationship has been at its lowest over the last decade. What are you doing now that you can tell me that would improve that relationship in order for business to also take equal responsibility as government to work together to change the economic situation?
A relational function of personalities. If personalities are not compatible with one another, the relationship don't work. My own view is that, having been in the meeting where government and business met last Friday, I think we have a better opportunity to work together. I'm in mining. When I walked in there, the government and the mining industry were not talking to one another. We're now talking to one another. We talk business with each other. We talk about growth. We talk about investment. We talk about employment creation. We talk
But did they take you by surprise with the retrenchment, plans?
I will come back to that.
Yeah.
And we talk about absorbing youth. When we talk to those issues and we cooperate, even for a short period, it reflects in the input of mining into the GDP, the biggest positive contributor in the GDP, 4.9%. We hope that is not a once-off. It will continue. I was worried by the 1.7 decline in the first month of this quarter, July. But we should talk to each other and improve. That's why when in the middle of that discussion, two mining companies announced retrenchment. It shocked me because we're in the middle of a very constructive discussion.
I want to come back to a little bit to focus on the mining, to say, how do we cooperate in such a way that we can impact on economic growth? We're talking to Minister Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Minerals Resources, and we're looking at the economy and the contribution of mining to the economy on this 32nd episode of Frankly Speaking. Let's take a break.
Ekurhuleni Artisans and Skills Training Center is a practical artisans and skills development center who equips students with the necessary knowledge and practical experience to enter the labor force as semi-skilled workers. There is a strong focus and need for skills training in specific areas like boiler making, rigging, pipe fitting, welding, CNC programming, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning and refrigeration, bricklaying, carpentry and painting at the center. Ensure your future today with the Ekurhuleni Artisans and Skills Training Center.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking with me on Koputse, JJ Tabane. Tonight we're talking to the Minister of Mineral Resources, Gwede Mantashe, about the state of the economy in the mining industry. The mining charter clearly an indicator of the levels of cooperation, the levels of the meeting of minds about how to take mining to the next level. Can you give me a sense of whether you now have a handle on it? I know that the submissions were closed on the 31st of August and we're mulling over the next draft. Just some highlights out of there of something that can show me that there seems to be a willingness to cooperate, to do certain things to contribute to economic growth.
On the 1 month extension to end of August, we received 126 more return submissions. Our team worked on them for 5 days last week. They worked on them for 5 days this week. They are finalizing the draft. They're testing the base with various stakeholders who must give feedback, because they say, out of your submission, this is what has come out, and listen to those stakeholders. They have met a number of them over the weekend. I'm sure there are meetings that are scheduled for tomorrow. After that, we'll also have to consult with government. That's why we'll have to go to the president, go to the cabinet. It's part of finalizing that. We're almost at the tail end of the mining charter. Because mining, we want to change mining from being seen as an industry for a charter into an economic sector. In 1970, mining contributed 21% of the GDP. That dropped to 7.4 in 2017. It's a long period. You must remember that in 1970, South Africa was isolated. We had no access to the international economy. We were isolated. We were dependent on imported substitution, industrialization, and therefore gold became important, mining became important. Now the opening up has opened other sectors for growth. So the reduction of that contribution is a function of two things: the diversification of the economy, and secondly, it is also the fact that gold is in decline. We've been mining gold over 130 years.
A lot of people are wondering whether the next draft or the refined draft will be in line more with a more radical agenda, or will it be watered down? Can you give us, I know you can't give us the entire chapter and verse, but one or two big things that you are passionate about in getting this mining charter right, that would give people a sense of confidence that this is going to result in proper transformation of this industry?
There are a few things that must be right. The first thing is that it must be a charter that I understand that if you want many benefits to many stakeholders, mining must be functional. And mining must be productive, it must be profitable, so that it must have resources for the social labor ban, it must have resources for the free carry shareholding for workers, it must have the capacity to do development in a number of communities. If it is not operational, it's not profitable, it's not going to be able to do so. To me, that is radical. What is not radical, to me, is to draw a list of things that must accrue as benefits and kill the industry. That is totally anticlimax of what should happen.
Like what? I mean, there's a lot of issues or discussion about beneficiation, which people believe that it's just become a slogan over years, and there's nothing concrete that you can point at that beneficiation could really be put at the mainstream.
Beneficiation has been starting off slowly. But what is important about beneficiation is adding value to the economy. For example, one of the issues we're raising is that you cannot beneficiate chrome and manganese if your price of electricity is skyrocket high. The electricity must be affordable for furnaces to benefit chrome and manganese.
Otherwise, you'll make a loss.
Yes.
In the process of trying to beneficiate.
Yes, because if the electricity is at the level it is, there is no formula. You know, there was an old formula, JJ, of commodity price linked electricity price for chrome, and that was killed. It worked because when the price of chrome was good, they were forced to pay higher electricity price. When the price of chrome was down, they paid less. And innovative thinking like that is going to be necessary if we want to beneficiate.
One of the big disagreements was the ownership levels. What is your own preference about where those must be? In 2003, when there was a suggestion that it was going to be 50%, we saw billions of rands being wiped off the stock exchange.
You are not going to see that now because we're all agreeing that we must increase that to 30 now.
Okay.
There is no fight over that. We all agree.
Is the industry happy with that in your understanding?
There is no fight over that.
Yeah.
Where there was a little bit of understanding is when we talk of 5% free carry for workers and 5% free carry for communities.
Yes.
We are finalizing that debate. It's more tricky with communities because many community trusts get open to abuse. But we must find a way of creating a formula of benefits accruing to communities that are equivalent to the 5%. For workers, there can be no issue because ESOPs are managed in companies.
Yeah, but all of these relate directly to the growth or the lack thereof. I mean, the growth of the economy has been revised now to be under 1%. Now, if you look at the other extreme, then the companies will say, if that's happening, we can't be hiring more people, we have to shed people. And you have now called on them to say they must halt that particular process. How do you deal with this issue of retrenchment vis-a-vis the fact that they tell you, look, we're not making money because the economy is not growing?
No, the economy is not growing. Mining must grow and contribute to the economic growth.
Yes.
It's not the economic growth that will contribute to mining growth. It's the other way around. And one of the issues that we should realize is that mining is not just gold and platinum. There are many minerals in the economy. For example, in terms of revenue, the leading mineral in the economy today is not gold, it's not platinum, it's coal. Chrome is doing well, manganese is doing well. Both have a potential of growing. That is where beneficiation will happen. If you can have a smelter in one of the chrome fields, will make it happen.
Okay, I want us to come back to this issue of retrenchment a little bit later, and then also talk about mining safety after the break. We're talking to Minister Gwede Mantashe. We're talking mining tonight and his contribution to the economy. Stay tuned. You can follow us on hashtag Frankly Speaking. You can also tweet us at JJ Tabane at SABC News Online.
Hey, amakhazi asipulele since kusile la Fatimbawula la kuyabanda le Goli, and then sesize sadecide ukuthi sivele sibase umlilo khona sokhona nokufudumala kusebenzeki nakahle.
Police killers are not coming from the sky. They are actually coming from the communities where we are. So it cannot be correct.
We regret what has happened because the strike affects everyone. So is electricity. Electricity also affects everyone. It's a community problem.
We are owing ESCO. Currently, we could not reconcile the bill, what they bill us, with theirs. We could not agree.
Hello and welcome to The Full View here on SABC News. It's great to have you with us.
You're not answering what I'm asking.
I'm saying to you, none of the commitments were ever met.
No, that's not true.
None of them were ever met.
That is not true. No.
The Wenama Trust was not an act of the national government.
Is somebody suggesting that the one who happens to have a white skin should be subject to expropriation without compensation?
But again, I put it to you that that has not been conclusively decided. That's what this whole process, which you are a part of, in making your submissions, will decide. We don't know what the final beast will look like. And until we do, all you're doing is fear-mongering.
No.
Welcome back to season finale of Frankly Speaking, coming to you live from SABC here in Auckland Park. And my guest tonight, Minister Gwede Mantashe. Briefly, before we talk about mining safety, you issued a statement once one of the mining companies, I think it was Anglo, said they're going to retrench 13,000 people and so on. It was about a few weeks ago. Have you met with them to see whether indeed they're going to stick to that plan of retrenching so many people, or is there a way in which you are finding each other?
It's Impala Platinum.
Yes.
That said, we are retrenching 13,000 people in 2 years' time.
Okay.
We said, no, it's reckless. It means you don't want to do anything for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, you're going to retrench 13,000. And we threw ideas to them, and many of them. For example, we said, you are part of the platinum industry. We're working on increasing demand for platinum.
Yes.
One, we're envisaging to have a Mandela platinum coin at one point or another. If it's approved, it must go to the treasury, it must go to the president, it must be approved. If we can get that, similar as we did with the Kruger Rand, that will increase the demand. The hydrogen energy cell, which is done both at Mindec and CSIR, if it can be commercialized, it will increase the demand for platinum. So we said to them, we're working on the increasing demand for platinum. In the middle of that discussion, you are announcing 13,000 retrenchment. We thought that was reckless.
But
we are engaging them.
Yeah, you're engaging. They have not changed their minds yet.
No. We're engaging them. They have not issued a Section 189.
Yes.
We're talking to them. For example, when they say shaft X, Y, and Z are not fitting our plan, we say give it to small operators to mine that platinum, put it in your production formal output, and you'll do much better. All those ideas are being looked into. We're hoping that there will be no retrenchment in Impala, and we're hoping that if there are, they will be minimal. Goldfields. Goldfields is a big mining company that has a lot of weight, but it runs one shaft in the economy. South Deep is running, it's a one shaft mining company.
Okay.
But when it talks a lot. It is promised to retrench 1,100 workers. We said to them, no, you can't do that. You're sitting on the second richest known gold ore body in the world. You can't just think about retrenching. We must talk about a way of reaching that ore body.
But the fact that they did so, what does it tell you? Does it tell you that they're not embracing the new dawn?
No, my own view is that it has everything to do with management. I said that publicly. Because if a management team throws 32 billion rand into a hole, it doesn't reach to the ore body. Retrenching workers is reckless.
It's not a solution.
The shareholders, the board, must ask that management to account for the 2 billion they've thrown in a hole. And there is a rich ore body, known ore body. Why can't they reach it?
I wish we had more time to explore this, but now the big issue that's also been occupying our minds where mining is concerned is mining safety. So many deaths in the first 6 months, or 21 of those specifically for allocated or rather attributed to Sibanye Gold. What consequences have been meted out to these organizations in that sense, or is it stuff that we need to expect of mining as a risky enterprise?
Now, I've been associated with mining for a long time. I watched it coming down from over 2,000 deaths per annum to where it is now. Last year, it was at 73 deaths, which was a spike in a decline for the last 10 years. But once there is a death in mining, big noise, and everybody talks about. Others call on me to close mines. And I tell COSAT, if I close those mines, you'll crowd
about the retrenchment. But are you saying, therefore, the level of safety is, on average, is according to well standards, expected? Is nothing extraordinary about the number of deaths we have seen?
It is not the worst mining industry in the world, not close to be the worst.
Yes.
It was the fastest improvement. And we can break it down. I can tell you that of the over 50 deaths this year, 21 are from Sibanye.
Yes.
That's one mining company. And we've been paying particular attention to that. Since the last disaster in Kloof, they had one death, and...
You're satisfied that they're on top of the issues of safety? Because
we should all be on top of them, not only them. It's not their preserve, it's everybody's preserve. That's why we're pulling the Health and Safety Summit from November to the first week in October, because we think it is urgent for us to pay attention to health and safety. And our aim should be zero fatality in the mining industry. But we can do that if we work together. It's not only the rocks, it's also the human behavior. It's also the question of management style. For example, if workers are under pressure, they fear. They do things that you cannot believe. How do they do it? For example, when there was a disaster in Kloof, I couldn't understand how could people open a closed place and walk in there to prove that they're brave and burn themselves to death. And I said when I talked to Sibanye, I said, to me, there is a man in your executive, Neil, who is actually kicking the backside of everybody. People are frightened.
All right, let's leave it there. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. Just your parting shot on the new dawn. A lot of people are saying, you know, they're trying to now to start to assess whether this new dawn is making the necessary impact. Briefly, what is your message to the country?
You see, look at what interventions have been made. And if you are a scientific student or an economic student, you'll know that the time lag between a decision and the impact must be given space. There are like quite a number of positive interventions that have been made.
All right.
You look into SOEs, a lot of work is being done there. We're doing lock-in mining. There's a lot of work being done in agriculture. One of the most important things is that there's more focus on the sectors. Where people who are responsible for sectors must account, they must be put on fire for the work they're doing in those sectors.
We wish you well on the work that you're doing, and hopefully we'll have more time to discuss in detail elsewhere. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Tonight. That was our final episode here of Frankly Speaking. I hope you found it useful. Thank you to the team, Frank, TD, Nyana, Lebu, and Livu. Thank you so much for all of you for watching. And until we meet somewhere else and talk frankly again, may God bless you.